September 18, 1944, Eastern France. The citadel at Épinal, Vosges region. 200 American soldiers stood in formation across a cobblestone square. They faced a stone fortress. The walls rose 18 meters above street level. The structure dated from the 17th century, reinforced with concrete additions from the 1930s. 4 corner bastions provided overlapping fields of fire. Windows were narrow. Gun slits were visible at regular intervals. The main gate was open. The gate consisted of 2 heavy wooden doors bound with iron. Each door was 3 meters high and 2 meters wide. Both stood fully ajar. The opening was wide enough for vehicles. Beyond the gate, a short tunnel led to an interior courtyard. The tunnel was approximately 15 meters long. The far end was visible but shadowed. It was 14:23 hours. The temperature was moderate. The sky was overcast, no wind. The only sound was the idling of truck engines behind the American formation. The battalion commander stood at the front of the formation. He held binoculars, but was not using them. His executive officer stood beside him. Neither man spoke. No orders had been issued for the past 6 minutes. The gate remained open. No movement was visible inside. The American unit was the 2nd Battalion, the 15th Infantry Regiment, 3rd Infantry Division. They had entered Épinal from the west at approximately 1300 hours, after 3 days of intermittent combat through the surrounding countryside. Resistance in the town itself had been light. German forces had withdrawn during the previous night. By 1400 hours, most of the town had been secured. The citadel occupied elevated ground on the southern edge of the town. It overlooked the Moselle River and commanded the approach roads from the south and east. The structure had been used by German forces as a supply depot and administrative headquarters since 1940. Intelligence reports estimated that between 50 and 100 German personnel had been stationed there as of September 15. The current number was unknown. The battalion had been ordered to secure the citadel as part of the broader operation to control Épinal and establish positions for the advance into the Vosges Mountains. The citadel's elevation and fortifications made it a significant tactical objective. If defended, it could delay the American advance for days. If abandoned, it would provide a secure command position for American forces. At 14:10 hours, the battalion had moved into position around the citadel. 2 companies had been deployed to cover the northern and western approaches. 1 company had been positioned to cover the eastern wall. The remaining company, along with battalion headquarters elements, occupied the square facing the main gate. Reconnaissance elements had approached to within 100 meters of the walls at 14:15 hours. No fire had been received. No defenders had been observed. The reconnaissance team had reported that the main gate was open and that no obstacles were visible in the approach. They had withdrawn to the battalion position without incident. The battalion commander had moved forward to assess the situation personally. He had observed the open gate through binoculars for 3 minutes. He had consulted with his executive officer and the company commanders. At 14:20 hours, he had ordered the battalion to form up in the square in preparation for an assault. The formation had been completed by 14:23 hours. No further orders had been given. Standard United States Army doctrine for the assault of fortified positions in 1944 was detailed and explicit. Fortifications were to be isolated, reconnoitered, and suppressed with supporting fires before infantry advanced. Entrances were considered the most dangerous points of penetration. Gates and doorways were natural choke points where defenders could concentrate fire on attackers with minimal exposure. The procedure for assaulting a fortress entrance required careful coordination. Supporting weapons, machine guns, mortars, and if available, direct fire artillery were to engage gun ports and firing positions. Smoke grenades were to be deployed to obscure the advance. Infantry would approach in small groups, moving rapidly and using available cover. The first elements through the entrance would face the highest casualties. Follow-on elements would exploit the breach once initial resistance was overcome. The battalion had trained for urban and fortified position assaults during exercises in the United States and in combat operations in Italy and southern France. The officers and senior NCOs were familiar with the procedures. The battalion had assaulted fortified positions on 3 previous occasions since landing in France in August. Casualties during those assaults had ranged from 8 to 23 men per action. The battalion commander had participated in the planning and execution of all 3 previous assaults. In each case, the defending forces had fought until either ammunition was exhausted or the position became untenable. German doctrine emphasized the defense of fortified positions. Withdrawal from prepared defenses was discouraged. Commanders were expected to hold positions until relieved or until destruction was imminent. The open gate presented an anomaly. Doctrine anticipated that gates would be closed and barricaded. An open gate suggested either abandonment or a trap. Abandonment was possible. German forces throughout the region were withdrawing toward defensive lines farther east. A trap was equally possible. An open gate could lure attackers into a confined space where positioned weapons could inflict maximum casualties. The battalion commander had ordered the assault formation because doctrine required it. The next step, according to procedure, was to issue the order to advance. Supporting weapons were in position. Smoke grenades had been distributed. The lead company was ready. The soldiers expected the order within minutes. The presence of the battalion commander at the front of the formation reinforced that expectation. The order had not been given. At 14:24 hours, the battalion commander raised his binoculars again. He scanned the gate, the tunnel, and the visible portions of the courtyard beyond. He lowered the binoculars. He did not speak. The executive officer glanced at him. The battalion commander did not return the glance. He continued to look at the gate. 30 seconds passed. The company commander of the lead assault company stepped forward. He stopped 2 paces behind the battalion commander. He waited. The battalion commander did not acknowledge him. 1 minute passed. The battalion commander took 1 step forward. He stopped. He did not take another step. He did not give an order. He stood motionless, facing the open gate. The executive officer moved to his side. He said nothing. The 2 men stood together, separated by 1 meter, both facing the fortress. 2 minutes passed. The assault formation remained in place. Weapons were ready. Soldiers stood without moving. No one broke formation. The gate remained open. At 14:27 hours, the lead company commander approached the battalion commander again. He saluted, though the gesture was unnecessary in a combat zone. The battalion commander returned the salute reflexively. The company commander asked a question, his voice low. The battalion commander shook his head once. The company commander stepped back and returned to his position. At 14:29 hours, one of the soldiers in the formation shifted his weight. The movement was slight, but audible. Several other soldiers glanced in his direction, then back toward the fortress. No one else moved. At 14:31 hours, the executive officer removed his helmet and wiped his forehead with his sleeve. He replaced the helmet. He looked at the battalion commander, then back at the gate. He did not speak. At 14:33 hours, a sound came from within the fortress. It was faint and indistinct, possibly a door closing, possibly metal striking stone. The sound lasted less than 1 second and did not repeat. Every soldier in the formation heard it. The battalion commander raised his binoculars immediately and scanned the gate and walls. He saw nothing. He lowered the binoculars. At 14:35 hours, a truck engine behind the formation coughed and stalled. The driver restarted it. The noise was loud in the silence. The engine settled into a steady idle. No other sound occurred. At 14:37 hours, the battalion operations officer moved forward from the rear of the formation. He stopped beside the executive officer. He asked a question. The executive officer shrugged. The operations officer remained where he was. At 14:39 hours, the battalion commander turned to the executive officer and spoke. The executive officer nodded and moved to the rear of the formation. He returned with a captain from the intelligence section. The captain carried a map case and a folder of documents. The three men conferred quietly. The captain opened the folder and showed the battalion commander several pages. The battalion commander read them, nodded, and returned them. The captain withdrew. At 14:42 hours, the battalion commander walked forward alone. He advanced 10 meters toward the gate, then stopped. He stood in the open cobblestone square, halfway between the formation and the fortress entrance. He looked at the gate. He remained there for 1 minute. Then he turned and walked back to the formation. At 14:43 hours, he still had not given the order to assault. The battalion commander had been observing the fortress since 14:10 hours. During that time, he had seen no evidence of defensive preparations, no movement along the walls, no adjustment of weapons, no observers at the windows or gun slits. The gate had been open when the reconnaissance team first observed it, and it had remained open without change. The intelligence documents reviewed at 14:39 hours included a report from a French civilian who had been questioned at 13:30 hours. The civilian, a shopkeeper, whose store was located 2 blocks from the citadel, stated that he had seen German trucks leaving the fortress. Throughout the previous night, he estimated that at least 6 trucks had departed between 200 hours on September 17 and 100 hours on September 18. He had not seen any vehicles enter during that time. He stated that the gate had been open since dawn. A second document was a radio intercept summary from Division Intelligence. The summary indicated that German units in the Épinal sector had been ordered to withdraw east toward the town of St. Da on the evening of September 17. The intercept had been decoded on the morning of September 18, but had not reached battalion headquarters until 14:20 hours. A third document was an aerial reconnaissance photograph taken at 1100 hours on September 18. The photograph showed the citadel from above. The main gate was visible and appeared to be open. No vehicles were present in the courtyard. No personnel were visible on the walls or in the open areas within the fortress. The battalion commander had weighed this information against the possibility of a trap. An open gate in a fortified position was inconsistent with defensive intent. A defended position would have closed and barricaded the gate. The absence of visible defenders suggested absence, not concealment. However, absence could not be confirmed without entering the fortress. The assault procedure would require the lead company to advance through the gate under conditions of maximum vulnerability. If the fortress was defended, casualties would be significant. If the fortress was empty, the assault would be unnecessary. The battalion commander had no way to determine which was true without committing forces. At 1442 hours, when he had walked forward alone, he had been testing his own assessment. If defenders were present and waiting, they would have fired at him. He was a visible target in an officer's uniform, standing alone in an open space. No fire had been received. The silence had continued. The battalion commander concluded that the fortress was empty. He decided that the risk of an assault was not justified by the available evidence. He chose to proceed differently. At 1445 hours, the battalion commander called the lead company commander forward. He issued instructions. The company commander saluted and returned to his unit. He selected one squad, 10 men, including the squad leader. The squad was instructed to advance to the gate, observe the interior, and report. They were not to enter the fortress. They were to withdraw immediately if fired upon. At 1447 hours, the squad moved forward. They advanced in a loose line, weapons ready. They reached the gate at 1449 hours. The squad leader moved into the tunnel entrance, paused, and looked through to the courtyard. He remained in the tunnel for 15 seconds. Then he turned and signaled to the battalion commander. The signal indicated no contact. At 1450 hours, the squad entered the tunnel and passed through to the courtyard. They spread out and conducted a rapid inspection of the immediate interior. At 1453 hours, the squad leader returned to the tunnel entrance and signaled again. All clear. At 1454 hours, the battalion commander ordered the lead company to advance. The company moved through the gate in organized groups. They entered the fortress and began clearing the interior rooms and corridors. At 1502 hours, the company commander reported to the battalion commander by runner. The fortress was unoccupied. Evidence indicated recent German presence, abandoned equipment, paperwork, empty supply crates. Estimated time of departure was consistent with the previous night. At 1510 hours, the battalion commander entered the fortress with the headquarters element. He conducted a personal inspection of the main structures. He confirmed the company commander's assessment. At 1520 hours, he established the battalion command post in the fortress's administrative building. At 1530 hours, engineers were brought in to assess the condition of the fortifications and to check for demolition charges. None were found. The fortress was intact and operational. At 1545 hours, the remainder of the battalion moved into the citadel. Defensive positions were established. Security patrols were posted. By 1600 hours, The citadel was fully occupied by American forces. No casualties had occurred. No shots had been fired. The operation was complete. The battalion after-action report for September 18, 1944, noted the capture of the Épinal citadel at 15:10 hours. The report stated that the fortress had been found unoccupied and that no resistance had been encountered. The report did not mention the 30-minute delay between the arrival of the battalion and the decision to enter. The report did not describe the battalion commander's assessment process or his decision to send a single squad forward before committing the entire unit. The division operations summary for September 18 included a single sentence. 2nd BN, 15th Inf secured citadel at Épinal without opposition. No further detail was provided. No commendations were issued related to the capture of the citadel. The action was considered routine. The absence of combat meant there were no acts of valor to recognize. The battalion commander's decision to proceed cautiously rather than assault immediately was not recorded in any official document. The soldiers who participated in the operation did not discuss it in letters home or in post-war accounts. The event was overshadowed by subsequent combat in the Vosges Mountains, which began less than a week later and resulted in significant casualties. The unopposed capture of a fortress was not memorable compared to the fighting that followed. The French civilian whose information had contributed to the battalion commander's assessment was not identified by name in intelligence reports. He was not interviewed again. His statement was filed with other routine intelligence documents and was not preserved in post-war archives. The aerial reconnaissance photograph taken at 1100 hours on September 18 was included in a routine photo intelligence summary. The photograph was not marked as significant. It was stored with thousands of other reconnaissance images and has not been definitively located in archived collections. The battalion commander remained with the 15th Infantry Regiment through the end of the war in Europe. He was promoted to colonel in March 1945 and given command of the regiment. He participated in the crossing of the Rhine and the advance into Germany. He was awarded the Silver Star for actions near Nuremberg in April 1945, unrelated to the events at Épinal. He remained in the army after the war and retired as a brigadier general in 1960. He died in 1978. His personal papers included a brief diary from the war. The entry for September 18, 1944 reads, "Secured citadel at Épinal. No contact. The executive officer was wounded during fighting in the Vosges in October 1944. He recovered and returned to duty in December. He was discharged in 1946 and returned to Oregon. He worked as a schoolteacher and later as a principal. He participated in one oral history interview in 1985. He was asked about memorable moments from the war. He mentioned the Vosges fighting, but did not reference the citadel at Épinal. The lead company commander who selected the squad to enter the fortress first was killed in action on October 8, 1944, near Brueris. He was 28 years old. His service record included no specific mention of the Épinal operation. The squad leader who entered the fortress tunnel and signaled no contact continued to serve with the battalion until the end of the war. He was discharged in November 1945 and returned to Michigan. He worked in a factory and raised a family. He did not participate in veteran organizations or reunions. He died in 2002. His obituary mentioned his service in Europe, but provided no details. Of the 10 men in the squad that entered the fortress first, 3 were killed in action before the war ended. 4 were wounded at various times. The remaining 3 completed their service and were discharged in 1945. None produced memoirs or detailed accounts of their service. One participated in a newspaper interview in 1994 for the 50th anniversary of D-Day. He mentioned serving in France, but did not discuss specific operations. 200 soldiers stood in formation facing a fortress. The main gate was open. No defenders were visible. Doctrine required an assault. The battalion commander had given the order to form up. The formation was ready. Supporting weapons were positioned. The procedures were clear. The order to assault was not given. The battalion commander observed. He consulted intelligence reports. He walked forward alone into the open ground. He received no fire. He sent one squad to investigate. The squad reported no contact. The company advanced. The fortress was empty. No assault occurred. No casualties were taken. The fortress was captured without violence. The action was recorded in one sentence in the division summary. The 30-minute pause was not mentioned. The decision not to assault was not documented. The reasoning was not explained. The gate had been left open. The fortress had been abandoned. The battalion commander had recognized this and acted accordingly. 200 men had been spared the risk of advancing through a confined entrance into an unknown interior. The absence of combat meant the absence of recognition. The war continued. The battalion moved into the mountains. Fighting resumed. The citadel became a supply point and then a rear area facility. The open gate was closed. The fortress returned to silence. The moment when violence did not occur left no mark. The decision was not celebrated. The restraint was not recorded. The gate remained, and the walls remained, and the fortress stood as it had for centuries. The assault never happened. The record is silent.